Hello, our lovely listeners. We are back with another episode. I am your son, Ray Johnson, and we have our luminous star, Lauryn Green. And today we are talking about the flip side of friendships when they go really well and you have trusted confidants and people that better you, lift you up, encourage you, and make you feel whole and special as you should. And
Yes, I'm really sorry.
I honestly could say that Lauren and I could talk about each other for hours on end, but we'll mostly focus on other people who have bolstered our lives in very impactful, inspirational ways. So I was going to let Lauren start off.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to talk about this topic because I feel like for the past, honestly, decade or so, or honestly my whole life, I could point out friends who I knew were really just down to earth, genuine, and who I have such great memories of. So I think what I learned is that when I think of a friend, I think of people who, of course, love you for who you are, who care about you, they respect you, and they uplift you, they inspire you, and they're always there for you whenever you're going through a hard time. So that's what friendship means to me. And I know people have different perspectives or different meanings of what a friend might be. So some people might think that friendship is more of a superficial thing, but personally, I don't because when I think of who I want to call my friends, I think of someone who I know I can count on and who I know will always value me and always be there for me. How about you?
I feel the same way, and I also feel that they bring out a side of you that you maybe didn't know about yourself in a positive light of an attribute maybe you didn't fully define yourself as, that you realize is part of a greater sense of your character. And just the general support of being a good listening ear and helping you with calling you out if you ever need to be, and never just solely a yes man type of person that truly feels comfortable and vulnerable enough to voice their opinions and for you to feel that you do the same. Also, I just feel that with friendships that you have to be a good friend to yourself first before you can actually have good friends. That way you're even better to them because you actually will start to internalize what they're saying and you actually feel it, and it matter a lot to you if you actually believe it. And people that will want to talk through and help work on you with things and not try to dismiss or delineate anything or act like it's not a big deal, and even if it isn't, to not make things too dramatic if they don't have to be. Just people who are willing to go through each journey of life with you, the ups and downs, because those types of friends build really strong bonds. And honestly, it's the kind I want to have, and thankfully I do have. It's just also people that aren't necessarily interested in the same things as you are, so you can learn about different things and find different appreciations for stuff you never would have thought of normally. I feel like that's a really valuable thing to help expand your world so you don't become complacent in what just you know. So I think that's pretty valuable too when searching for friends, to find out something that you might start to fall in love with as an additional hobby than what you're used to. I just think in general, expanding your worldview and mind with people is quite a valuable thing to do. And trustworthiness, obviously, being upfront and loyal with things like that. That's pretty much what I think.
And that's good. And I get what you were saying about being willing to expand your horizon and have diverse groups of friends, because I think that's a beautiful thing too. And that's something I may have struggled with in the past because I sometimes question whether it's best to befriend people who are polar opposites of you. And I think looking back on that now, on one hand, it can be a good thing because it, like you said, it broadens your perspective and introduces you to different aspects of life or different interests or values that you otherwise would never think of. But I think that there has to be some level of compatibility too, because if you and your friends have absolutely nothing in common and you don't see eye to eye on anything, then it's probably not going to work out. And maybe I'm just speaking out of experiences I had with people, certain people, but otherwise, I think it's wonderful to meet friends who are different from you, and you should embrace your friends' differences.
For
You shouldn't
sure.
tell them, yeah, like I would never tell any of my friends that, oh, you should do this or you have to do that because that's how I am or this is
Hmm.
what I like, because they're not me. They're each individual person, and I respect that, and I love them for who they are.
Yeah, for sure, they should be celebrated, and I don't necessarily think polar opposites is like the right term to use for at least for what I'm thinking of when saying different attributes. I mean, you can have some commonalities and stuff, like religion and things like that, or morality or whatever, but what I'm saying is just, someone could be, I'm just using a fandom thing as an excuse. Someone could really be into Star Wars and someone could really be into Star Trek, and it's okay that they like each other, um,
Yeah.
the fandoms may say otherwise, but it's stupid, it's whatever. But I just think that bringing a different perspective with interests and extracurricular things is a nice attribute, but not necessarily being polar opposites. Because, like you said, if you don't have anything, at least one thing in common, then it's probably for the best to just appreciate who they are as a person, but realize you probably won't be the closest with them. And that's completely fine. There's nothing terrible about that. I mean, the whole point of a close friend is that not every friend you have will be close, because then they wouldn't be close. Just everyone would be, and then it would kind of defeat the purpose of the term. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess looking back experiences in school, like what are some of your favorite memories from friends that you had?
I mean, obviously you and Nikki, when the three of us would hang out, uh, and Max and JP. They're still funny to this day. When I have occasional FaceTime calls with them, literally it feels like nothing's changed, and we just pick up right where we left off, and they still bicker at each other like brothers. It's very funny, especially because we still to this day talk about how for the High Point IDs we call them passports, and one time JP accidentally left his, and he said, "Hey Max, I'm just gonna see if this works to get a snack at the C store." And he said, "Yeah, I don't care, whatever." Because the worst thing that can happen is just decline you and you feel embarrassed. So JP goes in, he uses it, and they say, "Okay, thank you, Max." And he walks out, and he looks at us, shaking the bag in front of him like, "Oh my gosh, it worked." And it was the funniest thing ever. So it's just little innocent things like that, or going to the arcade and having a blast with that, and going to each other's places and playing music and just not caring. It has been really nice experience and uplifting too. Also making sure I don't become a hermit with academics and just solely focus on school to an unhealthy extent. I'm glad I avoided that trip fall that could happen, especially freshman, sophomore year. I feel like that's more of a tendency because you want to do really well and not have your parents worry and stay out on top, but you can't do it to an extreme. So I'm blessed that I still made good grades and also had really great, good friends to socialize with. And of course, the occasional classmate that would become a friend outside of that could happen from time to time. But those that I've mentioned were the real mainstays consistently throughout that I still am in contact with today on a decently consistent basis because of all of our busy schedules, especially for those of us not in school with jobs like Nikki and um, Max and JP. Max trying to find a second job. But yeah, I'm just really blessed to have them all in their fun, unique, quirky personalities. And they just all bring so much joy and life into my life and vividness, and I'm very, very pleased.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I feel the same way too. Of course, you were one of the first friends I had at High Point. I think the first friend I had was Chase because we were roommates during Summer Advantage. You know her, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then I think then we met the next day. And we met some of our other friends too. And I just think looking back now, like when I think of a lot of my good friends I had in college and the things we used to do, like we would hang out every Friday night, like we would have dinner together, we would do karaoke or we would go places, and we just like always had a good time together, and that's what I always cherish whenever I think back to my time. And I always knew I could count on them because whenever any of us were, as I mentioned before, going through a difficult time or a crisis, we didn't just leave each other hanging. We were always there to support each other, to check on each other. And that's, I think, the real testament to a genuine friendship.
So true. I mean, there are two real moments of when one of them was there for me that means a lot. For Nikki, there was one time I was having roommate trouble and she just let me spend the night with her. That was really sweet. And, you know, she hyped me up of being like, we're going to get them back, you know, just in a really funny, lighthearted, supportive friend way. And then Max, there was one time where in a specific group me chat I was in, they kind of bullied me and belittled me and made me think I was really stupid. And I just started crying because I'd had enough of it because it got to a boiling point at the last straw kind of deal. There was like 3 really major times, and the third one I just lost it in the sense of just started crying. So Max came over and hugged me and all that, and it happened to the bottom floor of the church. So it was an interesting environment and time to just feel that frustration and sorrowfulness, and to just know I had a really supportive friend there to be there for me meant a lot. And, you know, even if I wasn't going through something, just the general fun times just made sure I kept my mind off of overthinking too much or planning too far in the future, because I still have a tendency to do that, and my sweet husband keeps trying to help me with that. To be more spontaneous and live in the moment, but I'm very much type A, planner, organized 5 years down the road if I could. But even the Lord throws my way like, hey, you can't do that. Only he knows in far more than 5 years. But I'm just really blessed and thankful beyond just Thanksgiving.
Yeah, same here. And I can think back to a few times in college when, like, I was going through a difficult time, like sophomore year when I was having problems with my roommates. Nikki and her roommate at the time, Alice, were kind enough to let me stay in their room for 4 days. And this is something we talked about in one of our previous episodes. We don't need to rehash that, but I really appreciate them doing that. And, like, when I was in quarantine, like, you, Nikki, and our, like, even Abby, Jenna, all of our friends we all checked up on each other. And I really appreciate you doing that because that's more than some other people did.
Oh, well, of course, you're an angel, so you need to be loved and protected at all costs.
Oh, thanks. That's really sweet.
Yeah.
And I just think too, like, I think we're really blessed because, not to generalize and stereotype our school, but I just feel, and you might have a different opinion, but from what I remember, there were a lot of people at our school who were very superficial, very fake, very entitled. But the fakeness was the biggest thing. The best way I can explain it was fortunately, most people I knew were not like that. And none of my friends were like that, of course, because if they were, I wouldn't be friends with them. But a lot of people there were like that, if that makes sense.
Oh, it does. There's definitely the trust fund mindset of let's bring 3 cars, kind of over the top, bougie, more for show, and very much overly materialistic and placing values in things that fade with time, like looks and being able to party hard, stuff like that. thankfully, my only run-ins with that kind of lifestyle was having two different roommates at 2 different years that unfortunately were blonde sorority girls. Only one of them kind of chilled out when we weren't roommates and we were kind of cordial and things, but one of them just was kind of a lost cause, bringing over different boys and stuff. So that was the only time I had really bad roommate experiences. The other times was with Janata. I probably said her name wrong. I feel so bad. But to be fair, it was freshman year, so. And Shivani, she was really sweet. She and David bonded over D&D stuff. So, yeah, I'm really grateful. And I know we've talked about it in previous podcasts, but it's still just important to say again. It is okay, because this applies to Lauryn and me too, where, well, specifically with the two of us, that you do not have to room with a friend, or your roommate does not have to become a friend in order for you to have a good, successful time in life, especially in college. You can be cordial and nice and respectful of each other, but it doesn't mean you always have to hang out all the time 24/7 or feel the obligation to have that bond just because you live together. And Lauryn and I never roomed together, although it could be a fun time, but ultimately I just wanted to make sure I never ran into a situation where I was already a friend with someone and then rooming made it harder for us to stay friends because of different living styles and situations where we wouldn't mesh anymore. I didn't want that to ever be a factor to drive a wedge between me and someone I cared about. And I'm kind of grateful in that way, even with the bad roommate experiences of just knowing this is very much temporary. I don't ever have to see this person again. And I don't want to ever have this feeling with someone I love and cherish. So, Shivani is the only one that I really became friends with. I kind of respected my freshman year roommate, and we were kind of friendly and stuff, and I got to know her boyfriend, whatnot, and he was really sweet to her, which I'm grateful for, because just like with your future man, if they don't respect, I go protect and pow pow, if need be.
Yeah, we'll do it together.
But yeah, I just think it's a very important thing, especially with high schoolers going into college with all these grandiose expectations they have and the independent feeling. You're not ever forced to be friends with someone you live with, or ever in general, like just because you have classes with people or the same club or whatever, doesn't mean you have to be friends with everyone. And it's okay to be picky and pick and choose, because ultimately the ones that you're the closest with are the ones that are going to last. You don't want to try to build solid foundations with people as friends that you get a feeling and a vibe is going to be very much temporary. Like you're sitting in the front row of class and there's someone in the back left. You're most likely not to be friends with them, and that is quite alright. And there's nothing wrong with you or that scenario in general. And I myself didn't list that many people that I am still to this day pretty close with. And I'd rather take quality over quantity any day, especially with the caliber of friends I do have. I'm very much grateful for the standard we've placed each other at, and that we've respected it in each other's boundaries and have loved each other in a wonderful way that grows and sharpens each other in all the best aspects of life and how it should be. So just wanted to reiterate that again, and it's okay. You can be content.
Yeah, you really can. And I agree too, because that's something we learned, I think, going into college. We were told that your roommate may or may not be your best friend, and it's true. So when I think back to my time in college, I had all I can say is that I want to say maybe 4 or 5 different roommate experiences, if that sounds about right. Maybe, because, so Summer Advantage, I had one roommate, Chase, who became my first friend, and we're still friends to this day. And then, my freshman year, I had a roommate and 2 suite mates, and we got along really well. I was friends with my roommate. We weren't best friends, but we were just friends, and we got along well. And I was friendly with my suite mates, but the 4 of us, I wouldn't say were close friends. We just respected each other, and we got along well. And I was friends with my roommates who I lived with junior year and senior year too. The only bad roommate experience I had in college was, as I mentioned before, my sophomore year. Roommates from hell. Let's call it what it is. Just being honest, who I hope to never see those girls ever again, if I can help it. But I agree, like, and I think, like, my perspective on becoming friends with your roommates is that it's okay to want that, and it's okay to try to befriend your roommates, but if it doesn't happen, it's not a big deal. And I think I'm one of the few people who would actually encourage, like, incoming college freshmen to, like, after their freshman year, to room with their friends. And I know, like, you're saying that you don't want to drive a wedge in your friendship by living with your friends, which I agree with. So if you have certain friends where you're aware of some of their living patterns and habits, and you know in advance that if you live with them, it would hurt your friendship, don't live with them. But if you do have friends who you think you'd be compatible living with, then I would say try to live with them if you can. The only reason I would recommend that is because, based on my experience sophomore year, I didn't know those girls beforehand. I was placed into that situation so fast. I knew nothing about them or what I was getting myself into, and you see what happened. So that's why I would just say, like, I would avoid random selection if you can, because it's a hit or miss. You don't know what you're getting yourself into, and you might luck out, but you also might not. So I think that's, like, my piece of advice. And even if there's people you do know who you're not friends with, but you just think you might be able to live well with, then think of living with them too.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, just consider your options. I mean, for me, with the exception of 2 cases, it mostly worked out for me to be random, so it just depends on your preference. And honestly, in some ways, it doesn't even matter if you have your own individual room, so in that regard, it's whatever. But yeah, both opinions are valid, and it's whatever works best for you. And speaking of working best for you, you have to make sure that you surround yourself with people that better you, that make you feel that you're not being judged for being goofy or weird or silly, and embraces all your quirky sides. And maybe just as quirky as you, and you just up the quirkiness. Because true friends don't make you feel too judged for who you are, and don't try to slowly but surely change you. Obviously, that also applies to romantic partners as well, but we're primarily talking about friends. Because there's this quote, and I still use it to this day because it's so true. You are the 5 people you surround yourself with the most, because those influences that you hang around the most, you end up becoming that. Or let's say you surround yourself with people that did drugs all the time. Even if you morally and spiritually and all that have told yourself you're not into it, you probably will be tempted to eventually cave in to doing stuff like that because you're around it all the time, and it becomes normal. And it's easier to dismiss the risk if you see other people do it and have the appearance of enjoying it without seeing the downfall and side effects of it at that moment. So you have to be a good judge of character and make sure you're in tune with yourself and know what yours is first before letting other people in the sense of being vulnerable can be very hard, and it can be stressful sometimes, especially if you're the kind of person that's moved around a lot or whatever, and you feel like you're not in any space for too long. Just know that it's okay to take your time with getting close to someone, and it's also just as okay if you are just really bubbly and excitable and anxious to make new friends. If you make them really fast, that doesn't mean they're any less of a friend or it's any less strong. But just know that the pacing doesn't matter. It's the quality and character of the person, which is, in my opinion, with what I believe in my faith and stuff, the only way you could ever judge someone is by their character. And you can never fully judge someone on just one action alone. It has to be an established pattern. And then, if it's been a while and they're still acting a certain way you don't like, then you can kick yourself in the face for not doing anything about it sooner. But it has to be very much habitual for someone. Because then you could easily find yourself doing the things that you don't like and then realizing it too late, and you don't want to set yourself into that circumstance either. So just surround yourself with people who aren't jealous of your success or who you are as a person, or downplays anything you've done or want to do, or think it's silly or stupid or ridiculous, and that they embrace you for all facets of who you are as a person. And then you do the same for them. They feel a lot more comfortable with who they are, and then everyone's happiness increases, and it's just a much more wonderful life when you have that trust and vulnerability with someone that you know can continue to help you with your integrity and strength as a person, if they experience and exhibit that as well.
Yeah, that's very valid. And my other piece of advice as well would be, don't make superficial things the foundation of your friendship. And this was something I noticed, especially with my roommate's sophomore year, who we talked about in the last episode. I'm very discerning, as I mentioned before, and I'm also pretty good at noticing cracks in people's relationships, or I'm able to pick up and detect when people are trying to make their friendship appear to be stronger and bigger than what it really is. And that's something I noticed with them. So let's say, for example, you and your friends like to party and drink and whatnot, and that's all well and good if that's what you like to do, and nothing wrong with that. But I would just say that all that doesn't really mean much at the end of the day if you know that this person doesn't respect you, doesn't really care about you, and they're not going to be there for you in your darkest hour. So as much as you like to have fun together, which you should, friends are supposed to have fun together. How much does that really mean if you know this person really isn't down for you and you couldn't count on them if you were ever in need? The other thing too that I noticed was that if you're so happy and so content in your own life and you're surrounded by the people you love, doing what you like to do, then you should be fulfilled. You should be happy. Mm-hmm. So why then would you be so fixated and concerned about what someone else is doing in their life, especially if this is someone who you're not even friends with, and you've proven that you don't want to talk to them and you don't want anything to do with them, but yet you're obsessing over them, where they are and what they're doing, which was the case with me. So I would just be curious to hear your opinion on that.
Anyone that dulls your shine, you should not keep in the orbit of your life. I mean, for funsies, because the only drama I like is stuff I listen to that isn't in my personal life. And that's leading up to the fact that I love tea spilled on Reddit stories. And even if some of them can come across as maybe fake or a story prompt they had to fulfill for an assignment or whatever, I don't care. Just, it's fun, whether it's really applying to a person writing it, stressing out over a situation or not. So, I hear all the time about betrayal stories, whether it's a spouse or partner or friend, and the malicious intent that they have, or just the sheer naivety of someone not realizing what they're saying is wrong. And ultimately, it's kind of sad how rare it is for a family member, because even though you're born into a family, your family members and stuff can be your friends as well. So I think that's a valuable aspect to have too, is that for the best friend that, like, a Kaylee supports a Sally that's going through a hard time, and they're hyping them up, and they're saying, yeah, this guy is stupid, or whatever, just whatever needs to be said in the moment to give them clarity and reassurance and comfort. It's just very disheartening that there's very few stories far in between of how there's a character like that written within the story. And it just goes to show how the quality of a person, how truly rare it can be sometimes to find someone like that. So, most of the time these Reddit stories, they talk about how the family is basically gaslighting you into how they're wrong, or how there's just a really malicious friend that's going after their man or best friend that makes them feel that they're ugly and that they're the, ugly best friend, whatever that acronym is. I forget. It came from a movie or something. But it's just it's so silly, because honestly, my viewpoint on it is that it takes more energy and thought and strategy and all this brain power to be mean and bullying someone than it is to be nice. It's so much easier to be nice to someone than it is mean. So if anything, you're just wasting more time and energy yourself on someone else that you could be to befriend them or to better yourself. So I just think it's so stupid. So my advice would be to just, I know it's a lot harder with family, but especially a friend, it's some ways a bit easier because you're not living with them, unless there is an extraneous circumstance where it's a roommate that's a friend where this is happening. But ultimately, you have the power and choice and will to go low to no contact with someone if you absolutely have to. The least I feel like that you can do is, mute them, because with muting, they don't see that you block them if you don't want to feel that it's too dramatic to block someone. Or whatever it takes for you to not see someone on your feed, or for them to see you if you don't want them invading your privacy, if it's that kind of friendship. So that's my 2 cents on that, because life's too short anyway to be burdened by someone else who's subtracting and not adding to your life.
Yeah, it really is. So yeah, positive energy. I think that's a great place to leave it. But yes, so I hope we inspired you all today, and I hope that we offered you some great insight and advice of what to look for in a friend. And you can always, first and foremost, you have us.
For sure. Yeah, we hope you enjoyed this episode and everything we said. If you want us to elaborate on something else, we could post something on Instagram or lightly touch on it in the beginning of another episode. Whatever you suggest, just write in the comments here on this YouTube episode, or same on Instagram, and we'll continue to post episode updates as soon as we know about them as well for upcoming episodes we're going to shoot, things like that, the subject matter. And we love y'all. We hope you have a wonderful day or evening, depending on when you're listening and where you're listening. If you're in the car, if you're in the gym, on the treadmill, trying to pass the time so you don't think about how long you're on there, whatever the case may be. We just hope that you feel fulfilled and loved and heard and respected, and that you feel that you deserve those things as well. So stay tuned for the next episode, and same time, same channel.
Alright, love all of you. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Bye.
Bye.